thousands of years, the wolf has been one of North America's most successful predators. It can survive in deserts, forests, mountains, and frozen Arctic landscapes. It can travel enormous distances in search of food. It can bring down prey several times its own size. And it can coordinate with its pack in ways that have fascinated humans for centuries. But there was a time when the wolf was almost gone from the American West. Not because another predator defeated it, not because its prey disappeared, but because humans decided that the wolf had no place here. We hunted it, we trapped it, we poisoned it, we paid people to kill it, and eventually, across much of the United States, the wolf disappeared. But decades later, something extraordinary happened. The wolf came back, and when it returned, it brought an old argument with it. Asterisk, asterisk, should the wolf be protected? Or should it be controlled? Asterisk, asterisk, the animal at the center of this story is the gray wolf. Its scientific name is Canis lupus. It belongs to the family Canidae, alongside coyotes, foxes, and domestic dogs. But the wolf is something different. It is a specialist in cooperation. An adult gray wolf can weigh anywhere from roughly 50 to more than 100 pounds, with males generally larger than females. But weight isn't what makes a wolf dangerous. Its greatest weapon is the pack. A single wolf is impressive. A pack is something else entirely. Wolves possess powerful jaws, sharp canine teeth, exceptional hearing, and an extraordinary sense of smell. But perhaps their greatest advantage is endurance. A wolf doesn't necessarily have to be the fastest animal in the forest. It only needs to keep moving. Because while a deer or elk may sprint away, the wolf can keep following and following and following until the weakest animal begins to fall behind. The wolf isn't simply a predator. It is a predator built around cooperation. Long before modern America existed, wolves were already here. They lived across enormous portions of North America. They followed herds. They raised their young. They defended territories. And they encountered another highly adaptable species, humans. The relationship between people and wolves was never simple. Across indigenous cultures, wolves could represent companionship, intelligence, loyalty, hunting ability, and spiritual significance. But wolves could also be competitors. They hunted many of the same animals that humans depended upon. They occupied the same landscapes. And sometimes they came into conflict. Yet for thousands of years, humans and wolves managed to exist alongside one another. Then the continent began to change. As European settlement expanded across North America, millions of acres of wilderness were transformed. Forests were cleared. Livestock replaced wild herds. Ranches spread across the West. And wolves found themselves living in a landscape increasingly dominated by humans. For ranchers, the wolf was not a symbol of wilderness. It was a threat. A wolf could kill sheep. It could attack cattle. It could take calves. And unlike a storm or drought, the wolf was alive. It could be hunted. It could be killed. And the campaign against it began. Across the American West, wolves became targets. Bounties were offered. Traps were set. Poison was used. Wolf dens were destroyed. Government predator control programs expanded. The objective wasn't simply to reduce wolf numbers. In many places, the objective was elimination. The logic was straightforward. If wolves were killing livestock, kill the wolves. If wolves competed with hunters for deer and elk, remove the wolves. If wolves were considered a threat to settlement, remove the threat. And humans proved remarkably effective. Across much of the lower 48 states, wolf populations collapsed. The animal that had occupied these landscapes for thousands of years was being pushed toward the edge. Perhaps nowhere tells this story better than Yellowstone. Today, Yellowstone is one of the most famous wildlife destinations on Earth. Visitors come to see bears, bison, elk, and wolves. But for decades, wolves were absent. In the early years of Yellowstone National Park, wolves were considered undesirable predators. They were hunted as part of predator control efforts. By the 1920s, wolves had effectively disappeared from Yellowstone. The last confirmed wolves in the park were killed in 1926. And then silence. For nearly 7 decades, Yellowstone existed without its native wolf population. But removing a predator doesn't simply remove a predator. It changes the relationships between everything else. Without wolves, elk became far less vulnerable to one of their most important natural predators. But Yellowstone's ecosystem wasn't controlled by one species. Elk interacted with vegetation. Vegetation interacted with rivers. Bears competed for food. Mountain lions hunted. Coyotes adapted. Ravens scavenged. And humans continued to influence the landscape. The important point is not that wolves disappeared and Yellowstone suddenly collapsed. Nature is rarely that simple. The important point is that removing a top predator changed the balance. And scientists would spend decades trying to understand exactly how much that mattered. Then came a decision that would change Yellowstone forever. In 1995, after decades of debate, wolves were brought back to Yellowstone. For the first time in generations, wild wolves were once again moving through the park. Imagine that moment. An animal humans had spent generations trying to eliminate was being deliberately returned. The wolf walked out of its enclosure. It entered the wilderness. And Yellowstone suddenly had a predator it hadn't seen for almost 70 years. The experiment had begun. The wolves began doing what wolves do. They hunted. They established territories. They formed packs. They reproduced. And they interacted with virtually every other major predator in the ecosystem. When wolves killed an elk, they created food for scavengers. Ravens arrived. Magpies arrived. Eagles arrived. And sometimes, something much larger appeared. The grizzly bear. A wolf pack could kill an elk, but a grizzly could steal it. And the wolf wasn't the only predator forced to adapt. Coyotes faced new competition. Mountain lions faced competition for prey. Elk faced a predator they hadn't encountered in generations. Yellowstone had changed again. The return of the wolf became one of the most famous examples of a trophic cascade. The basic idea is powerful. Change the top predator, and you can change what happens below it. Wolves can influence prey numbers, but they can also influence prey behavior. An elk that knows wolves are nearby may move differently. It may spend less time in exposed areas. It may avoid certain places, and those changes can influence vegetation. Vegetation can influence insects, birds, and other animals. Waterways can influence vegetation, and the entire system becomes interconnected. But here's where the story gets complicated. The wolf did not magically redesign Yellowstone. Climate changes. Fire changes ecosystems. Drought changes vegetation. Bison, bears, mountain lions, and humans all play roles. The real story isn't that wolves control nature. It's that wolves are one powerful piece of a much larger ecological puzzle. And that puzzle extends far beyond Yellowstone. In the wilderness, predators don't live in isolation. They compete. They steal. They intimidate. And sometimes they fight. A wolf pack can dominate a smaller predator. A mountain lion can ambush prey that wolves cannot reach. A grizzly can walk into a wolf kill and claim the entire carcass. The North American wilderness isn't a hierarchy with one animal sitting at the top. It's a battlefield of competing strategies. But there is one competitor that no wolf can intimidate forever: us. Today, the wolf has returned to parts of its former range. But the conflict hasn't disappeared. For a rancher, a wolf isn't an abstract conservation success story. It's an animal that can potentially kill livestock. For a hunter, wolves can represent competition for deer and elk. For conservationists, wolves represent the recovery of a species that humans nearly eliminated. And for wildlife managers, the challenge is even harder. Because wolves don't understand state borders. They don't recognize private property. They don't care whether a political boundary says they are protected on one side and hunted on the other. A wolf follows food. It follows territory. It follows its pack. And sometimes that path leads directly into human territory. And so the debate continues. Should wolves be hunted? Should populations be controlled? Should livestock owners be compensated when wolves kill their animals? Should wolves be protected everywhere? Or should individual states determine how many wolves their landscapes can support? There are no easy answers. A conservationist sees a species returning from the brink. A rancher sees an economic risk. A hunter sees a competitor. A wildlife manager sees an ecological component that must be balanced against human interests. And the wolf sees none of this. It is simply trying to survive. And while some wolf populations are recovering, others remain vulnerable. The Mexican gray wolf tells a very different story. Once nearly eliminated from the wild, this small population became dependent on captive breeding and carefully managed reintroduction. Today, conservationists continue working to preserve it. But recovery is more than simply increasing numbers. A healthy population needs genetic diversity. It needs habitat. It needs prey. And it needs people willing to tolerate its presence. Because bringing the wolf back is only half the battle. Keeping it there may be harder. For a new generation of wolves, the American West is no longer a place they disappeared from. It is home. Pups are born into packs that know territories their ancestors once lost. They learn to hunt. They learn to communicate. They learn the boundaries of their world. And they inherit something their ancestors never had, a chance. But that chance comes with a question. Can wolves and humans share the same landscape? The future of the wolf will not be decided by wolves alone. Technology is giving scientists unprecedented insight into their lives. GPS collars reveal where packs travel. Genetic research reveals how populations are related. Camera traps reveal behavior that humans rarely witness. And new strategies are being developed to reduce conflict. Better livestock management, wildlife corridors, early warning systems, non-lethal deterrence, compensation programs, and carefully managed populations. The goal isn't necessarily to create a world without conflict. That may be impossible. The goal is to find a way for conflict to exist without destroying the predator. The history of the wolf in North America is a story of survival. It survived the Ice Age. It survived the expansion of humanity. It survived bullets, poison, traps, bounties, and decades of deliberate extermination. We nearly erased it, but we didn't. Today, the howl of the wolf once again echoes through parts of the American wilderness. And perhaps that is the most remarkable part of this story. The wolf didn't conquer America. It didn't defeat humanity. It simply endured. But the question facing the wolf now is different. Not whether it can survive the wilderness. It already has. The question is whether it can survive us. Because the wolf has returned. And now, we have to decide whether there is still room for it.